Hey guys, it's Alex from CNY Women's Network. I just want to quickly tell you about a couple events that we're going to be hosting in December that I think you will want in on. So the first event that I want to tell you about is our in-person networking event happening at Common Space Work on Wednesday, December 4th. We're going to be featuring Kiana Franklin of KSF Consolidated for a little networking mixer, followed by a fireside chat, live Q&A, and some one-on-ones. We're going to be covering topics for all things accounting, taxes, and financial goal setting. This is the perfect time of year to start wrapping your head around getting ready for tax season. Attendees will have access to pick an accountant's brain before tax season is in full swing, so be sure to come with whatever money-related questions you have for Kiana. We're going to be meeting at Common Space Work on Wednesday, December 4th from 5 to 7 p.m. for some networking, a fireside chat, Q&A, and some one-on-ones with Kiana, so definitely don't miss out. And of course, to curb the appetite, attendees will get to enjoy complimentary champagne, sparkling water, and charcuterie provided by She Fancy Catering Company. Secondly, we have a community call happening. This is a virtual event that will be happening on Tuesday, December 3rd from 9 to 10 a.m., where we will be discussing persuasive speaking in the workplace. We're going to be featuring Carrie Murwowski for this event. Carrie Murowski has her PhD, and she is the Director of DEIA Learning and Development in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at Syracuse University. Carrie is going to provide a short lecture on public speaking. Then she will lead an interactive workshop on persuasive speaking in the work setting that can be adapted to sales pitches, convincing your team or supervisor of your big idea, or simply just advocating for yourself. Carrie will also provide a list of resources for us to share with attendees right after the event. Both of these events cost only $10 to attend, but if you're a member of the Collective by CNY Women's Network, then you get to go for free. So if you're interested in either or both of them, be sure to visit our show notes so you can find the links to register, and we'll see you there. Hi guys, welcome back to Cultivate CNY. I'm your host, Alex Canavan, and I am so excited for you guys to hear from this week's guest. He's a designer and partner at the Lab Creative who has a passion for creating lasting visual identities for purpose-driven brands. He has produced work for local brands like Myers Creek Brewing, The Whiskey Coop, Emerald Cocktail Kitchen, on top of national brands like A6. In this episode, we talk about his career path as a creative entrepreneur, imposter syndrome, an interesting PR campaign he did with a local brand, and some of his favorite projects to date. So without further ado, let's welcome Andy Orr to the show. Well, Andy Orr, welcome to Cultivate CNY.
Thanks for having me here.
Love
the studio.
Yeah, no, I love it too. Shout out Medicine-Based Beauty.
Oh, yeah.
Shameless plug. Well, before we get into all of the amazing topics that we're going to dive into in this episode, give us your origin story. How did you get to where you are? You are the designer and partner at the Lab Creative.
Yes. So born in Pulaski, New York, raised by a family of teachers and really into drawing from a young age, really got into drawing and design, kind of creative arts, that sort of way. And then went to SUNY Oswego for graphic design for the BFA program. After school, I ended up getting a job. This is weird. I got a job in IT immediately out of school. Didn't go for design. It was just 2007. So it was like, we're almost on the verge of a recession. So I just had to take the first job that was available. So I took a job in IT in-house for a foods company or an agriculture company and just kind of worked there for a couple of years, moving my way up until finally a design position opened up. And then immediately they were like, you went to school for graphic design. Are you interested? And I kind of was almost ready to let go of that. I was doing some freelance stuff, but really for full-time design work, I was like, maybe that time is over and maybe I'm an IT guy now. And then kind of moved from there into the design role, into an art director role. I was in that for about 7 years. And then one day I was just like, I think I kind of want to do something different. I kind of want to work at a small studio or kind of have my own small studio, even though that seemed crazy. You know, like entrepreneurship, you're just like, that's for somebody else. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that. So the opportunity presented itself to partner with a really fantastic partner, Colin Brady. We kind of started with our vision of just like we wanted to do a small creative agency that was involved in a bunch of different projects, both locally and nationally. And Our ideal was to stay small and scrappy. I always wanted to do the visual design and branding for it. Colin wanted to do visual design and web design. And so we kind of came together and just made this really great partnership to build this studio that we're currently working in today.
How long did you and Colin know each other before you decided to start a business together?
Great question. This one's surprising for a lot of clients. So we've been in business for 9 years now, and we've had clients that have been in with us probably, I know we have a couple that have been from the beginning, and they're just finding out now that Colin and I are cousins. So it's kind of crazy because people are always like, how did you meet Colin? I'm like, I've always known him. So we were always those kids that were like at family events. We were like playing hide and seek in the house and just like doing all kinds of crazy shenanigans at my grandma's house. As we got a little bit older, we kind of lost touch. I think people do that when they're close in family. They go off to college and you see each other a couple times a year, like Thanksgiving and stuff. And then as adults, I was working at Dairy Lee in my IT role. Colin got a job in downtown Syracuse as a programmer. And I think he just kind of reached out at one point, was like, oh, we should go grab drinks or whatever at Empire. And then we just started hanging out like every weekend. And it was like nothing had ever changed. So known each other our entire lives, worked together for the last 9 years, which is pretty great. So it's been a good partnership because family-owned business, even though we don't tell people that, it's not really the selling point. We probably should tell more people about it. Like Kate Hauk from David's Refuge just found that out like this year and she freaked out. She's like, no way, you guys don't even look alike. And I'm like,
You guys are polar opposites.
completely. Like personality-wise, like everything I have to work super hard for. Colin's just naturally good at everything. It's just complete polar opposites, but we're a good mix in the studio and a good working mix because we both kind of keep each other in check on different things. So
Yeah, so you take over a lot of the design work, a lot of the creative work,
Mhm.
right? And what does Colin specialize in?
So we kind of share things back and forth. It's kind of interesting. They're really, when we started out the studio, we had this clear delineation of like who was going to be responsible for what. Like you will do web stuff, you will do brand stuff, and like kind of stay in your lane. He's a really good designer. So he's a web developer and a programmer, basically a software engineer by trade. And he's a really good designer. Like, again, he's really naturally gifted at everything. So previous to when we founded the studio, he had his own small web shop and he started doing a couple of logos for local companies just as a means to get the web work. And one of them was the Toast in Canastota, which then moved to Kaz. And I remember people just being like, oh, I love that logo. And I was like, that was Colin. I think he did it for like no money. And he did it just so that he could get their website, like something on the website finished. So we kind of blend work back and forth just because we both have different interests during the day, during the week. We both have different things that we're better at the other than, but it kind of works to share things off for a process. For the visual design stuff, I take most of the lead with the visual design and brand work, but Colin's great at kind of cleaning me up afterwards, where I show him a couple of ideas, present a couple of decks of like what we're going to go to a client with. And he's always the guy that's like immediately can pick out like the wrong thing. Like he'll look at negative space in a logo and he'll be like, that looks inappropriate. Like we should do something about that. So it's great. And for the web stuff, like he'll be working through a web problem and be super confused. And I might just like point at something and like, yeah, what about this? And it's just, we both sometimes are a little bit too close to something and we have to take a little bit of a step back. It's having that person that's behind you that's a little bit removed kind of helps that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think having a second set of eyes when it comes to design at
Mhm.
all is just always the best way to go.
Yeah, because like when you're working on it, you're so close. You're so close to it. And then you're so like passionate about what you're doing. And then you unveil it. And then somebody who's never seen it before immediately picks out the flaw or whatever in there that you just didn't notice because you were too close to it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how you guys have just known each other your whole lives. So there's none of that kind of uncertainty around how you guys are communicating with each other. I know that in a lot of business partnerships, especially if they're newer, it might be a little harder to be honest and transparent and, just worry about how to you might offend someone or something along those lines. But I'm sure you guys can just be really transparent and straightforward with each other.
We're pretty good. I'm more of a chatterbox than Colin. We're pretty good. We know our means of communication at this point. So I know when he's not saying anything, I know that he's pretty grumpy with it. So when we're working together, our communication styles complement each other at this point. And again, we've known each other forever. So at this point, there's really no mysteries. But working together every day kind of shows, like, I mean, I probably annoy him like crazy because I talk nonstop. I listen to terrible music in the studio. I'm constantly like asking him what he's working on and like asking if he needs help. And he's a little bit more of a like plugged in and focused sort of person. And he'll only like kind of look up when he has something specific that he wants to like actually ask or talk about. But it works. We're a good complementary pair. I feel like, us working together and communicating over the last 9 years, it's just gotten better and better. We've definitely had our spots where like we're both trying to articulate or say something, but we both just can't get it out. And that's like kind of frustrating in certain ways where you're like, why don't you just read my mind and understand this? But for the most part, I think we maybe have had like 2 disagreements in 9 years. And that's like something that I kind of take for granted when I talk to other friends that have business partners and they're like, every day, like we're arguing about like how this should be this way or we should work with this person. I'm like, oh, we had that in like 2018 once. So I'm kind of gifted and lucky with that. But yeah, he's really easy to work with. He's really easy to talk with. We're both on the same wavelength of pretty much most business decisions that we have to make for the company. So that makes it a lot easier.
Are you looking to save big this holiday season? If you answered yes, then you are definitely not going to want to miss Medicine-Based Beauty's Holiday Happy Hour on Thursday, December 12th from 5 to 7 p.m. Of course, you guys can look forward to some festive drinks and snacks, but better yet, they're going to be offering some insane discounts on treatment packages and gift cards. So if you guys are looking to up your beauty routine, definitely don't miss out on this incredible event. Thursday, December 12th at Medicine-Based Beauty in downtown Syracuse from 5 to 7 p.m. You're not going to want to miss it. Who was the first client you guys had when you started the Lab Creative?
Oh, God. So I might have to dive a little bit deeper into this one. I think it was shout out Marty's Barn Cellar. I think we found them. I think they're on like a website like Fiverr or something that was like trying to hire, or maybe it was like, forget what it was. It was some website where they posted like a listing where they were looking for a logo. And I think we hit them up and just gave them the lowest offer possible just to get something like that we could work on together. And the owner at the time, Mike, really cool guy, super easy. He's like, oh, well, you got to come by. And like, we had to tour the whole showroom and check everything out. And I had been there with my parents when I was like a little kid. So I kind of remembered it, but like we went so over the top with this thing. Like we were doing a logo for Marty's Barn Cellar. And we're going so over the top, like doing brand research and like trying to like ask people questions about like what it means to them and presenting these ideas. And then really in the long run, I think Mike pulled us aside and he's like, I just want something people can see from the road. Like, I just want to put it on a sign and have people see it from the road. And we're like, oh, okay, that's way easier. Like, we'll just do that. So yeah, that was our first official project client. I think our first retainer client that we still continue to work with to this day is it's from the dairy world, Cayuga Milk Ingredients and Cayuga Marketing out in Auburn, New York. So they make, it's not super exciting stuff probably for most people, but they basically make milk powder, but it's a good little product. They ship it internationally. They've been growing as a business. And then for me personally, a little bit of a backstory with them. Again, I came from dairy. I worked for probably 7 or 8 years in dairy before this. So I worked for a company called Dairy Lee and then a company called DFA. And Cayuga Marketing was kind of a smaller cooperative that was like kind of on the outskirts, wasn't part of DFA. We were aware of them, had worked with them in the past. And then when I left and started the studio with Colin, we somehow got connected with their CEO at like I think it was like a funeral or something. And he's like, oh, you were that guy that worked at DFA. And I'm like, oh, you're that guy from Cayuga Marketing. And he's like, what are you doing now? And we kind of mentioned that we had a small web and brand shop. And he's like, oh, our website's terrible. Like, you should come work with us on that. So we just did the first marketing website. And then from there, they were like, oh, like, well, we need a member website now that shows their payments. And we need this software that plugs into a scale. And like, so we've been working with them over the years. And it's been fun to watch them grow from, like a small cooperative to like a factory putting in like a multi-million-dollar expansion.
Yeah,
now.
that's huge.
So, yeah, it's been fun to like have some of these like first time local clients that we've been working with our first year, and then 9 years later we're still working with them. And like, we know the business at this point, and like we can almost foresee some challenges ahead of time before they do because we're so close with them.
Yeah. Which is a really interesting perspective because you think you're getting into this line of work to just produce something for a client, but you're really getting a lot of kind of insight into a lot of different businesses.
Yeah. And that's kind of why we started doing this. Um, like originally, I was super happy at DFA when I was working there. Like I was like, had great friends there, great people working there. Working for farmers is like surprisingly awesome. There's some that are super hard to work with, but it's because they're so close and they love what they're doing. And when you're doing something for them, they just want to make sure that you're bringing your best. So leaving DFA and going to work for like a small studio, at the time, we didn't really know what we wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to work with things that were different, things that were smaller and like more diverse. Still wanted to work with like my folks from agriculture, but at the same time, I still like, like when there's a new cafe opening, like I wanted to work with them and I wanted to do something with them. And one of the unintended benefits for the studio is you get to work with so many different businesses over time. You just know so much about all of them. Like we work with a dermatology company, we work with a health and fitness company, and we kind of have to know all facets of their businesses. So it's kind of fun with trivia when somebody asks a very obscure dermatology question, and Colin and I both are the only ones in the room that know it because of what we do. But at the same time, we also know like kind of some of the new like milk products that are coming out of Cayuga milk ingredients. It's boring and weird, but like for us, it's kind of weirdly exciting because every day is different, every week is different, every month is different.
Yeah, especially if you're just interested in, how businesses operate and develop in general. It must be a really interesting job.
You get so much experience just like watching people do it. And now we're at the point where, I mean, we've been doing it for 9 years. Like we can see people will come to us with like a restaurant idea and they're like, oh, we want to hire you for a brand because we're doing this sort of restaurant. And after 9 years of doing this and both Colin and I like living and working in downtown, we're like, are you sure? Like not to diminish your idea, but like if you're a lawyer and you have a lot of money and it's been your dream to invest in a restaurant and here's your idea and you're like hitting us with it, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work. Like you're going to open this like right next door to somebody else who's doing the same thing. Like might not be the greatest idea. So it's been fun to talk to people about some of those ideas, but like weirdly too, like we love knowing like new things that are happening in Syracuse. Like, as you know, like everything, there's so much happening down here so fast. So when somebody hits us up with an idea for a restaurant, we're like, oh my God, there's a French bistro opening up like down the street. It's amazing. So it's always fun to be able to get to know about those things first.
Kind of get that inside scoop. Well, you do work with a lot of hospitality brands, some of them being Myers Creek, Emerald Cocktail Kitchen. You've done work for Exo Taco, The Toast, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Original Grain, the new Whiskey Coop.
Yeah.
Which I love.
So good. You like it?
Yes. I love fried chicken. So
It's
I'm
a
so
good
happy
spot.
they're in downtown.
It's funny because like there are people that were like, when it was like announced or opening, there were people that were like, I don't drink that much whiskey. I'm like, that's like one of the things there. Like the food is the selling point that you're going to love. Like the whiskey is just the thing that's on the wall if you want to buy it. Having said that, Cheryl, the owner, is going to kill me right now because she's like super, super knowledgeable about every bottle that's on that wall. And I know she wants everybody to come in and like enjoy every aspect of it. But like the food is incredible. It's, to me, I'm like, it's the real thing. Like everything coming out of the kitchen is like the best stuff there.
Yeah.
Whiskey's whiskey. You can get it anywhere. But like the food there, the experience there is great. Glad you like it.
Yeah. Well, working with hospitality brands, do you just kind of have a love for them? Was it intentional or something that kind of naturally happened for you guys?
Yeah, great question. It kind of happened naturally. We never thought that was going to be a avenue for us. When the Toast first came up, Colin did their logo and website. And then when we founded the studio, we kind of just brought him in. We took everybody that was like part of Colin's like freelance operation. We were like, well, we're doing this now. Do you want to join in? And we'll still honor the same price. So the Toast came in. That was like the first one we were really working with, building out their website and doing some stuff for like their social. I think afterwards it was kind of a dry spell. We didn't really work with a lot of restaurants until I want to say like 2018 or 19, when Chris Biley and Eric Himden were doing Original Grain. They had worked with Tommy Lincoln and Stay Fresh Studios to do the brand and some of the stuff for the inside. They did an awesome job for it. So when they were going to launch their second location in Rochester, Chris and Eric kind of hit us up and asked us to be a part of it. And they were like, here's what we did with kind of the Syracuse location. can we do something different but still the same brand in Rochester? And we were able to kind of do whatever we wanted with it. And then from there, I mean, Exo Taco was kind of an idea that kind of came out. We were able to work with them on their original brand and website, and that was really fun. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was like restaurants popping up and hitting us up. And like, you know, like I think Michelle from Emerald was like one of the big ones that like when she hit us up, that was like a big deal. We were pretty excited about that one. Cheryl from Whiskey Coop and Hopspot, love that. And then Myers Creek was also a pretty great one. That was kind of funny because they had a Squarespace website. They hit us up for a website and they're like, here's the budget. Can you work with it? And we're like, yeah, totally. And then they were like, okay, cool. Do what you want. So like they had an RFP, they knew what they needed to hit, but like Colin and I love craft beer. We love what they were doing. And we were just kind of pitching them ideas because we were like, what if the website had this? What if like the colors changed every time somebody clicked on a new beer and it like matched the labeling of the beer? And they were just like, sure, whatever, do whatever you want. It's fine. So that was a really great one to work with. In restaurants, we didn't focus on that originally, but all of a sudden we just found a lot of them kind of asking us for work. And we're like, oh, there might be something here. Like we're starting to grow as a city. We're kind of getting a little bit of work from some of the restaurant brand design, menu design, website design. We might want to start like kind of like looking into this a little bit more seriously, but it's been great. Michelle's been a really cool one to work with. That was kind of out of left field. How much did you know about Emerald Cocktail Kitchen before it was kind of coming out?
I personally did not know too much because, I mean, we work with Michelle a lot now.
Mhm.
Michelle's actually one of our members, and we do our Novels at Night event with her
Okay.
every month.
Yep.
It's like a rooftop book club / networking event.
Yep.
Really interesting concept, but they're always well attended, and they always remind me I need to start reading more. But Michelle is amazing, and she is one of the like grittiest, hardest working people I have met in this area, but
Yeah.
also super creative and also a very good leader. She's very good to her employees and she really knows what she's doing. But she actually started the brasserie with her mom when she was just 21, I believe, 20 or 21.
Was she that young?
Yeah,
Seriously?
she was young and she's been, you know, but she grew up in the restaurant industry too.
But like imagine being like 20 or 21 and being like, yeah, like entrepreneurship, like gonna own a business. Like I was scared. I think I went off at like 29. Pardon me. I think I went off at 29 to do it, or maybe 30 I was when we started the studio. And like I was terrified. I was like, maybe I'm too young to do this. And like Michelle being like 21, kind of a fearless person, or at least she gives that vibe off when you meet with her and talk with her. So like not surprised she went for it, but just the idea of like being 20 or 21, female in the area, and being like, yeah, start a restaurant, like with my mom. I mean, she had that kind of support there, but still it's like you constantly hear about people saying how hard it is to own a restaurant, run a restaurant, and then being like 20 years old and being like, yo, let's go for it. Let's try it out. Like that's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that builds some sort of resilience and character.
Totally. And I also think she probably is one of those people, like you said, that's just kind of gritty and has it. She's kind of funny. Can I talk about the Emerald project a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
I'd
'cause how
love.
funny it was?
Let's go into it. I think a lot of people would really enjoy hearing about that.
That one's funny because like I think we got hit up by Michelle pretty early on. Like it was right maybe during COVID. It might have been during 2020 or 2021. Can't remember the exact year, but she hit us up. It was still Zoom calls, people working from home, no in-person stuff. And we had a Zoom call, a discovery call where we kind of heard what she wanted to do. And I had not met her before. I had been to the Braz a bunch of times, but I had not met her personally. So we're on the Zoom call with her. She's telling me what she wants to do. And I'm like, O'Day's there? Like, seriously? Like, why don't you do it downtown? Or I didn't say this to her, but in my head, I'm like, I don't know about that. But she had the concept ironed out in her head. She very clearly articulated it. And the more I've gotten to know Michelle, like, you know, how like rare that is, where like, you know, she doesn't talk to you about a project unless she's ready to go. She's like you, like she doesn't have like ideas that she just spreads out there and throws and then just does nothing with. Like if she's talking to you about it, she's got the plan, she's ready to move on it, she's got the vision, it's happening. So she tells us about it and she kind of sets the vibe. She's like, I want it to be kind of like seductive, a little bit like flirting with like Catholicism, a little bit for the visual brand. What do you guys think you can do? And we hit her up with some rough directions at first, and just to kind of show her like what we were thinking, sketching the brand. And she's like, great, just kind of flesh that out more and run with it and let us know what you need from us. So we kind of gave her the color palette, the brand, all the illustrations, like the snake wrapped around like the apple and all those things. We just kind of started doing all that. And like, I think she asked for like a logo and a couple things, and we just got really carried away and we're like, look what else we did. So when that was starting to kind of come together, like the brand came together, we handed it off to her, and then it was construction delays. And I think people knew we had kind of posted like a little bit early on social media, like, here's this thing we're working on coming to Syracuse soon. And then like a year later, like it still was construction fencing around it. And people were like, when's it going to open? Like, is this going to happen? I think a lot of people at that point, probably as business owners, would have abandoned the project and like run away from it.
But I can't believe how more normalized these long construction periods has become in businesses.
We'll get to that in a minute.
The waiting period is so much longer than it used to be.
I mean, it was, I do remember like restaurants like Original Grain, I think they announced it, and then like 2 months later, the doors were open. And it was, I think it was like a Tim Hortons 2 months. Like they announced it when it was like a Tim Hortons. And then like 2 months later, there was like Tommy Lincoln drawing on the walls and putting cool stuff everywhere. And then Michelle, it was, we're doing it. I think Syracuse.com ran an article on it. And then a year later, there's construction fencing. And again, any like other person probably would have just been like, I'm done, and walked away from it, sold the property or whatever. She stuck with it. Put an elevator in that building, like all sorts of crazy things. Like the vision actually came fully alive, and now it's thriving. And it's crazy because like
such a great job,
right,
with that building.
And there were so many people who are like, that's never going to work. And I remember seeing there were guys on Facebook when it was announced, they're like, Tip Hill's getting gentrified, and I was just like, she grew up there. Like, it's not gentrified. Like, she grew up there. She's doing something in the neighborhood she grew up. You guys should be psyched on it. I did see that guy do the rare apology, though. He's like, oh, my bad, I didn't know. And I'm like, why did you say anything?
Yeah.
But still, like, she's stuck through it. It's alive. It's thriving now. And it's kind of funny because we have talked to some kids like through the SU design program that were like, that's all they've ever known. Like when they come to Syracuse and that's open, that's all they've ever known. So that's a normal thing for them. But meanwhile, for like people like me and Colin, who like we used to play darts at O'Day's, and like that place was, not to offend anybody, it wasn't what Michelle made it. Like it was a cool, comfortable, awesome dive, but it wasn't what it is now.
But it was a dive.
Yeah, like I remember on their Facebook post, they had their most popular Facebook post was that they had remodeled the bathroom. That's like the type of place that George O'Day's was. Like they were like, yeah, we redid the bathroom and there's like a sink in here and it's great. And it had like 100 likes. And I'm like, oh my God. And now to go from that to like this really inclusive space, it's really beautiful, new events all the time. Like Right Mind is doing stuff there all the time too. It's so cool to see. And it's all because like, people like Michelle are just like taking a chance on like this area and sticking to their vision and really like letting the creativity flow. So we love it. We just need her to do 6 more of those in Syracuse.
Yeah. Well, you work with not only a lot of hospitality brands, but a lot of women-led and women-owned brands. Yeah. What has been your experience around that? There's a lot of them popping up.
So that's funny because I didn't, we never saw that coming, and we don't know why that's a thing in Syracuse. If you go to any other city, like the hospitality and dining scenes are pretty much male owned. Like I feel like you see that in a lot of cities. Like maybe there's like female owned restaurants like here and there, but Syracuse all of a sudden, after working with Michelle and kind of working with Cheryl from Whiskey Coop and Hopspot, we were like, wait a minute. There's like new project that's women owned, another new project that's women owned. And then there's Possibilities, which Karen owns. And that's an insane business that she's doing over there. And then there's, was it LM Social? That's Rebecca. She's doing something there. And we just kind of noticed, we're like, there's kind of like a disproportionate number of like women ownership and leadership in the hospitality world here. Why? Like, what is it in Syracuse that really, is it just like random? Is it just circumstances here are just different? We haven't really been able to figure it out, but we do think it's a really cool thing in the area that like not a lot of people have observed or necessarily respected, but it's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's because it's like a Rust Belt city. So there was a lot of opportunity and a lot of people just kind of put investment in other areas. So like those women business leaders in this area were like, oh, I have the opportunity to like go for like a street level like real estate for my project, or I have this like connection where I can do this restaurant here. Not really sure what it is, but we've kind of observed it and it's growing and we're excited about it because again, there's like different concepts that are popping up that we've never had before. And I'm happy that they're women owned. I'm happy to see that we have our cool little thing here in Syracuse. Um, I
I've
just,
also, have you been to Noble Cellar yet?
not yet. Oh my
Sarah
God.
Pellegrini
I'm going to get killed
runs
by Rob
that
and Sarah for
with
that one.
Rob.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually love the food there and I love the atmosphere, but I really like the branding and
Yeah.
where they took that.
Yeah. That was a Josh Carter project. I think he worked with Rob and Sarah. I don't really know what the process was for that, but he told me he was working on a wine bar the same time that we were working on a wine bar. And I was like,
Did you
uh-oh.
guys work with
We
Nobodies?
did, yeah.
Okay.
So like right around the time that like Josh and I were talking, he has a creative agency here in Syracuse too, and he's like, "We're doing branding for a wine bar," and I'm like, "We're doing branding for a wine bar." Like where's yours? You know, like you don't want to show your cards or anything like that. And he explained that he was doing something with Rob and Sarah in the old mission space, and he had a whole story behind it that he liked for the whole brand, and I was like, that sounds awesome. I hope you're able to really like make that happen. And then we had our whole story that we were working on with Bob and John from Nobody's, and we were kind of just gonna see which concept would open first. And I think Nobody's got the doors open first, but again, they're doing wine and spirits. And Noble Cellar is a full kitchen. But I love seeing I haven't been in yet, but I've seen the photos. I've loved that Rob and Sarah have partnered with local creatives. Like Audra did the sign that's out front, and she's awesome. She did the mural outside of Salt City Bar, and she's super incredible. Yeah, but I'll have to check it out at some point soon. This is a good reminder for me to get in there.
Yeah, no, and they apparently have their new fall menu out, so shout out Noble
Plug.
Cellar. Love them. So, as being a creative and being an entrepreneur, it's certainly not easy, and maybe sometimes it's not the most ideal career path for some. What have you experienced in terms of hurdles you've had to face or
Oh gosh, that's a good one. Everything. It's interesting because when we got involved in this, I had no agency experience. Colin had no agency experience. So he was in-house at a software company that did translations. I was in-house at a company that sold milk. So we didn't really have that whole client side experience. So when we started this thing, we were brand new to it, and we had heard the horror stories about working with different clients. We had both kind of done freelance jobs, but really had relatively good experiences with them. And I guess our biggest hurdle was working with clients that had no vision. You know, when a client would reach out to us for a brand and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm opening this new business and like I really want this impactful brand." And we'd kind of send them the discovery information and they'd be like, "Yeah, like here's kind of what I want." And then helping to kind of get a vision, number one, narrow it down and deliver something that they wanted without letting them kind of butcher the project. That's always been like a huge hurdle. We've been really fortunate that a lot of our clients have been really like respectful of like what we bring to the table. I know it hasn't always been the case with creative agencies, but I think a lot of people tend to look at creative agencies the same way they look at like, you know, like a contractor that paints their kitchen. They're like, I want a thing, do it exactly the way that I want. And that's typically not how creative agencies tend to want to work. For us, it's really, you know, if somebody says, hey, I want a logo, it needs to be a bird sitting in a tree, it needs to be blue, can you do it? And it needs to look very specific. In my mind, I'm like, no, that's, you know what you want. I don't want to be the pencil that creates that. Work with somebody from Fiverr or somebody that's like, you know, maybe an emerging designer out of SU that needs that sort of experience. For us, what we really have loved to do is when we work with a client is like, I kind of have a vision. What would you suggest? What would you do for me? And then we're able to brainstorm and come up with our own ideas of what we think that would look like for a first revision, and then have them kind of add input, create something like Emerald. Like Michelle knew roughly what she wanted to do. Like she knew the vibe that she wanted, but she didn't come to me and go, I want a pint glass with a snake wrapped around it. I want a nude woman holding an apple, just stuff like that. Like, so she kind of told us what she wanted for a vibe. We kind of delivered on that. And it was a great process to work with her. The hurdles are always kind of managing the expectations for clients that don't really have their own expectations. And also another hurdle is just time management. It's always the hardest thing. I feel like people talk about it. Some people don't talk about it. It's always just like time management is always like the biggest hurdle of any business owner, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always think things are going to take a lot less time than they actually do.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of those people perpetually late for everything, still am a lot. But, you know, for like family events, they're like dinner starts at like 3 p.m. And like I would be rolling in the door at like 3:45, or like my sister would be like texting me and she'd be like, oh, like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm on my way. And I'm like in my apartment still. So things like you see like, oh, it takes me 20 minutes to get there. So you leave 20 minutes before the thing. It never works. So time management is always the biggest struggle. We're getting better at it. Colin's always been pretty good at it. So I try to take notes from him. I'm not good at it, but I'm improving for sure.
You just spoke to my soul. So this whole year has been me getting better at not being late. I've gotten a lot better this year, though. I will say that.
What have you done specifically to kind of help with that?
So one time I heard that the reason why you are late is because you're anxious about going.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that I had, like, actually, I have a lot of social anxiety, which you wouldn't think doing what I do.
Yeah,
but
great choice. Do a podcast on video when you have social anxiety.
I'm really good with people one-on-one, but maybe it might have something to do with imposter syndrome, a little bit of self-sabotage, whatever. I knew that I had issues with it, but ultimately I realized that I don't want to make other people feel like I don't value their time.
Right.
So really, I've just made it a goal to be, I tell myself I have to be there 10 minutes before the actual scheduled time. And I am usually about 1 minute early. But
isn't it funny how
because
that works?
I'm perpetually late, I have to like trick myself into being on time.
Yeah. And it's always like, I'm glad that you brought up the respecting other people's time thing, because I remember like just naively going through my life and like, I think it was like a previous girlfriend had told me like when I'm late, like she makes it feels like I'm not respecting her time. And I remember like that moment of just being like, oh my God, is that what everybody thinks when I'm late to something? Like, oh no, never really thought about it like that before, but that's always kind of stuck with me. And then the other thing is just like when you're late, like it's just, there's always like excuses, you know, like there was traffic and there was this and there was construction. And like when you just kind of spend a little bit more time to like get to a certain point, like when it's showing up to something, if you give yourself more time, it's so much more relaxing. You don't have to have excuses. Excuses don't present themselves. And you're like a little bit more like, who's ever shown up to like this, like the podcast, like showing up here to the studio, like, okay, I showed up too early. Oh boy, now I have to go get a coffee. Like, what a bummer. Like no one's really that upset about being early. It can be annoying if you have a client that shows up like 30 minutes early before like a meeting. That can be a little bit annoying. But
I know I don't like when people show up too early because I usually need as much time as I can get right up until, and I just have that weird mentality around time. I don't know, but
it goes and it's also like faster than you think. Like your days go so much faster. You wake up every day and you think you can get a lot done, and then all of a sudden it's like 7 p.m. and you're like, where did it go?
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, so I'm like one of those people, if someone else is late, I'm like, oh yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause I actually am like finally like 10 more minutes to myself. And I think the reason why I have been perpetually late is because definitely anxiety. And I think I've always just filled my plate up too much. And I think imposter syndrome has a lot to do with it because when you know you have to be on and you have to be somebody for other people and you don't really feel like you're that person, like it's just kind of like, I don't know, like you don't want to go anymore.
I do wonder how, like, at what point does that ever go away? You know, like the imposter syndrome stuff, or like just in general. I'm like, because right now we've been doing our studio for like, I mean, almost a decade. And there's still parts where like we'll get asked to speak at something, or like we'll be talking with somebody about our roles, and I'm like, oh, like I still kind of feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome, even though like we've been doing it for a decade. Like we're here and it's not by mistake. Like kind of earned our place for it, but it still kind of feels like, you know, you're like, like, is this really something that people go through life feeling like? Imagine what it's like if you've never felt like that though, like what you could accomplish, like as an entrepreneur, just knowing you're like, yeah, I belong here, like having that confidence. It would be crazy.
Well, I think being very, very humble is the reason why actually a lot of people do become successful. But I did get to a point where I realized that because I was showing up to spaces with a certain energy, because I didn't really believe in myself, it affected the way others saw me and saw what I'm trying to build. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't really truly have a vision and see that it was possible. But I think that my imposter syndrome kicks in when I have to share it with other people. And a lot of the times, I think that can happen to people who think big and dream big when they're oftentimes in rooms with people that don't.
Yeah.
And almost like you don't want to be, the complete version of yourself because you don't think people will understand or see you or accept it in a way. So you kind of like play small. I think that's been the case for me is I've played small. Like I still really am not good at introducing myself or explaining what I do. And I've caught myself saying, yeah, I'm trying to do this thing. Like I say I'm trying to do it, but I'm not saying I'm doing this thing.
Yeah. You're in season 2, you're doing the thing, you know, like when you're doing the podcast, like, oh, imposter syndrome a little bit, but like you're in season 2. How many people have you met and had discussions with at this point? And like, you're doing it. It's happening. Like and like, it's kind of funny that you brought up like, you know, commitment and like imposter syndrome. Like how many people like talk about wanting to do a podcast, you know, like to their friends or whatever, like we have this idea or this theme, like let's do a podcast, and then they never do it. And then here you guys are, like you and your team, and like the lights are on, you guys have a space, you guys have a consistent format, you guys have a list of guests that are on. It's really, really cool because like, oh, you're doing it. It's not trying to happen, but you're making it happen. I don't know if the imposter syndrome thing ever does go away, but you're right, it kind of is like a healthy dose of, oh, we're moving a couch. That's a cool couch.
I think we just moved a mattress too not too long ago,
nice.
Right?
That was a really great couch.
I think, I don't think the imposter syndrome ever goes away.
Yeah.
I really don't think it ever will.
But it does
I
keep
think
you kind of humble and grounded.
I think realizing that despite the fact that you do feel this way, nobody's coming to save you, and it's your job. If you want things to happen and if you want people to buy into you and believe you and support you, what you're doing, you need to show up and be 100% confident in what you're doing. Yeah. So just fake it. Just fake the confidence.
The fake it till you make it thing is so funny.
Just pretend like you don't have imposter syndrome.
No one starts just like fully adept at what they're trying to do. Like everybody has to learn. You know, like any of these people that are successful, like they started from something. Even if it was just like a rich kid that had an investment from their parents, like they still started from nothing. Like they had the investment, they had the means and the resources, but they still had to pursue the thing to be able to become successful at it. The people that just bootstrapped it from the ground, they had to learn everything and become successful at it. Just sticking with it and being consistent really helps with that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think the social anxiety really ever necessarily goes away.
Yeah, you just get a little bit better at coping, right?
Yeah. Like even now, like it's kind of funny because like a lot of our business, I think when we started our studio out, we were really like launch the website. We thought, you know, that was going to be a great website and people were going to see it and want to work with us immediately. And we were just going to do a lot of design work. And the reality of it is we launched the website. Nobody came because no one saw it because no one knew who we were. And like typically when we're looking for clients, they're not searching for like web design near me, you know, like maybe people that are doing small mom and pop shops are, but then they're finding Squarespace first. They're not finding us. But then the types of people that we want to be able to work with, on bigger scale, bigger vision projects, they're doing it through networking and like referrals and stuff. And in order to do that, you kind of have to get out there and talk to people, meet people. And when you have social anxiety, like you do, I do, it can be tough to get out there and try to meet people because you're just like, am I a fake? Do I know what I'm selling? Do I know what I'm talking about? And then the thing that really worked for me is just not selling anything. Like just meet people with absolutely nothing in mind. Just learn what they do, learn what their story is. If there's a way that you can help them. Like create some sort of, what do they call it? The creating value. I feel like that term gets thrown around all the time, but I'm like, yeah, I just used the word help. Like if we're meeting somebody and they're like, oh, I have this issue, we'll just give them the advice or the strategy or whatever. And we'll be like, if that works for you, if you like that, come hire us and bring us in and see what else we can do for you. But I will admit on a personal level, like when we have a day where we have like 4 client meetings and then there's like an after hours event, like I will go home and just like shut off my phone and not talk to anybody, not look at social media. Like I will need some serious recovery time from all of that stimulation. And I'm like, I wonder, like people will often call and be like, you're the social one. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm the one that talks nervously all the time, like not social. Like when I go home, I'm still like, thank God I don't have to talk to anybody right now. Like it's so nice. But do you have that at all? Like where you just go home and you're just like blanked out?
For sure. I actually need a lot more recovery time and alone time. Because of what I do is so social and so almost performative,
Yeah.
I would say. It's a lot of energy out, and you have to be careful, I think, when you are in that role in a business where you are the face of the brand and it's your
Yeah.
job to be the social one or to be going out and networking and building these connections,
Yeah.
because you can end up in a position where you are all out of gas and you don't have anything left for your friends or family. And you really need to be careful of that, especially if
Yeah.
if you truly want to have a well-rounded life.
I think we had talked about earlier, like on the phone before this was all together, we talked about a little bit about time management and that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, oh, I'm still struggling with time management and like my mornings and how to like devote time for like personal life and work life. And you hear a lot of like business leaders and entrepreneurs talk about like their work life balance. And depending on who you get one extreme or the other. Like you'll hear some people that'll be like, oh, I'm hustling 17 hours a day. And then I'm like sleeping 4 hours a night. And then you're not doing well. There's nobody that's sleeping 4 hours a night every night, working 17 hours a day, like doing their best work. Like that's a lie. People put that out there to seem like they're super hardworking. And I'm like, we get it. You want us to think of you as the hardworking guy. But as somebody who works in reality, I'm like, what do you do for like enrichment? Like, what do you do for fun? Like, cause you have to have fun. And if you don't have fun, I don't want to work with you. Like if you're just somebody who's like a 17-hour a day machine, and then you just eat real quick, and then you don't say hi to your family, and then you just immediately go to bed for 4 hours, and then you're immediately back on the grind. It doesn't really sound like you're like that good at what you do or that interesting of a person. And I don't know, that sort of thing is just such a weird thing that I feel like it might have been my generation. Like it might have been the millennial generation that started putting that out there. And I'm like, ooh, we need to stop this.
The toxic hustle culture.
Yeah. I'm like, we need to cut this out. And I think it was the guy from Dollar Shave Club was like the first one I saw. He was just like, oh no, I work 8 hours a day, if that. And then I make sure I sleep and see my family and like have hobbies and like work out. And it was like completely at odds with like what a lot of other people were saying, where they're just like, no, I work and then I go to sleep. And I'm like, what a weird thing to sell. Also for like success, I'm super successful. I work and I sleep. And I'm like, sounds like you're not good at your job if you have to do 17 hours a day for that sort of output. Whereas like the guy from Dollar Shave Club is doing like 6 hours a day and he's fine.
You're in such a creative role. I think that people that are in a very creative career role actually need a little bit more time and space, because creativity takes time and space, right? So what do you like to do for yourself or your own enrichment to keep that inspiration alive?
Living in a city is great for that. I hate to default to that one, but it's like I grew up pretty rural, so things were pretty boring. Like Pulaski, New York, if you've ever been there, there's fishing and people calling it Alaska. Like if you bring up like, oh, I grew up in Pulaski, oh, Alaska. No. Or they're like, oh, I went salmon fishing there once. There's not a lot to do. So you kind of have to occupy your own time and entertain yourself. Meanwhile, now living in a city, like there's always something going on. There's always something stimulating. There's always something to look at. I mean, even in Syracuse is a small city, but even walking around between home and the studio, it's like there's always like different things that I notice every day. So that sort of thing helps. And then just once I, you know, to stay motivated, I love like just checking in on what other people are doing in other cities, like how other cities are growing. I love running. Like that's another thing that gives me a little bit of peace. Not so much of a road runner these days, a lot of trails where I can get out and it's quiet. That sort of thing gives me a little bit of time to think about some things. Staying creative is just, I don't know. Somebody asked me about this a couple weeks ago and I was just like, I don't really know what I do to stay creative. There are definitely moments where I have slumps. And I think it's just recognizing like a slump and then just doing something to change it, like anything. It used to be for me when I would go through a slump, I would need to go to Boston and then just change the scenery and just go see what they're doing. And we were really fortunate. We had a client out in Boston, still do, just don't get to see him as much. And they were fantastic where, you know, like every month or two, if I was like in a slump and I was like, oh man, I've been really spending a lot of time in the studio and I kind of feel like I want to like branch out and do something, I could kind of hit them up and be like, oh, like we should do like a meeting about like the fall capsule. And they'd be like, come on out. So like you have your little trip to go out there for a few days, see new restaurants, walk around, just air smells different. And then you come back and you're a little bit more recharged.
Yeah.
That sort of thing kind of helps me a little bit. But also like on the flip side, too much traveling kills my creativity. Like if I have to go to multiple places, I'm just tired and I don't really want to do anything. But recognizing that, then I know I can shift into more of the admin work side. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a time period where we do a lot of project management and kind of rely on Colin for the creative aspects of it. She's really good with that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely traveling helps a lot, especially if you are in the same environment all day, every day. And Syracuse is a small town. We also see the same people all the time.
Yeah, we do. Which is always like kind of crazy when I like meet somebody new. They're like, I've been here for like, I don't know, 6 years doing this. I'm like, where? Like, what are you, like, why have I not heard about you until now? Like, tell more. Like, I need to hear more about this.
So I know that you went into it a little bit earlier about how you kind of connect with potential clients, but since you and Colin both didn't really have much of the agency experience before you started, what have you learned about pitching yourself to potential clients and kind of obtaining these dream clients? Because you not only work with local brands, but you've worked with national brands as well.
Yeah. So great question. It's kind of funny when we first started this whole thing, we had ideas of like how we were going to pitch ourselves and our services and how we were going to talk about ourselves. I even started writing up like an internal style guide for us of like, here's what we say and what we don't say. And like, you know, we refer to our physical space as a studio and not an office, like intentionally, because we don't want, you know, an office is where like your accounting work is done and like a studio is where you create and record. So we had little things like that where it was like kind of branding things for ourselves that was consistent. When we would talk to other people, we were just saying consistent things each time. I mean, pitching is kind of funny because like we've only really had a couple of times where we had to pitch and I think we lost all of them. Like almost all of them we have lost on the first try, typically because they are clients that are used to an agency coming in and pitching and like wowing and like having a team and like maybe they bring a gift basket or something. Like, I don't know. So when we were showing up to like, I don't know, like an opportunity where we would pitch, we were pretty much like, well, we're a small creative agency. We're really focused on quality. We're really focused on doing new things. That's what we do. If that's something that you value, give us a call. If not, if you're just looking for the lowest price point, probably not us. If you're looking for the highest price point, also probably not us. But if you're looking for somebody to just fill the air in a boardroom, we might not be the best fit. But if you're looking for a partner that's going to get into the weeds with you, like give us a shout. We're down. Some people really did respect that approach. And then we had a couple other people, like larger organizations that, again, they were used to like a team of, you know, account managers showing up and like wooing them. And we didn't really like to do the whole like over promising thing. We were like, look, here's what we'll do for you. Here's the proposal. Here are the ideas. We can't wait to work with you. Obviously, like we wouldn't even take a meeting with you if we didn't want to work with you. What do you guys think? If you guys are into it, great. We'll work together. We can't wait. And usually we would start with like a project. We wouldn't pitch people like retainers. We've had a couple of people that were like, you guys should just start pitching retainers like immediately. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go steady with a client that long, like let's start with a project, see if we all work together well, see if we all enjoy what we're doing together. And then we'll talk about like a closer relationship. So yeah, the pitch really kind of, it's less of a pitch. I think a lot of people, I don't know if there are any agencies that do the Mad Men, like Don Draper style pitches where it's like really emotional and like everybody's thinking about it for a long time afterwards. I think a lot of times, like, especially nowadays, we have younger business owners, younger people in leadership roles, and they just want to get stuff done. And I think they respect a little bit more of that approach of like transparently, here's what we offer, here's who we've worked with, here are the people who trust us. If you're interested in that and interested in us having a project, let's do something together. Having said that, again, no's happen. Like I think there was one, I don't know if can I mention client names on here?
Of course. Give us the tea.
This is wild. Okay. I'm really bad at this stuff too, because I'll like just tell you guys stories all day. We had a meeting with Loretto, and full transparency, Loretto is our client, but we had a meeting with Loretto, and I remember it being this meeting where it was us and it was Digital Hive in the same room, and we're pitching for a website. And I remember sitting there and like hearing Jeff Knaus do his whole like talk, and I was like, oh man, we're done. It's not happening. And then, because again, I've known Jeff for years. Like I went to school with Jeff. Jeff and I skate together. We go on skate trips every year. So I'm like sitting there. This is my first time to like work with him though, and like see him like in action. So Colin and I are sitting here at one side of the table. Jeff's to our right. And then there's the management team for Loretto across from us. And they're talking about their needs for a website. And it's almost like a game show where it's like you buzz in and answer. And Jeff is buzzing in and answering, and he's killing it. And Colin and I are just like, well, we'll just build a website for you guys. It'll be great. Whatever. So bad at selling ourselves. Jeff was so good at selling his agency. So eventually Loretto calls us and they're like, look, you guys are great. We're going to go with Digital Hive. Sorry. And we were like, we get it. It's fine. And they're like, but we'll give you a shot if anything else comes up, because we really like you guys. We like what you do. It's just, we're working with Digital Hive and they're doing the marketing for this thing too. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's a good fit. It's not us, it's you, that sort of thing. And then I think it was like a year or two later, Digital Hive made their exit. And the company was no longer quite the culture of what it was before, and wasn't able to provide, I guess, the level of service that Digital Hive had when it was under Jake and Jeff's management. So Loretto was kind of looking for a change, and they're like, hey, so about that site, like, are you guys still interested in like working together on something? Because we actually have something new that we want to do. We're not sure that some of these other agencies are qualified to be able to do it. We did have a meeting with you guys, and you guys came across pretty well, and we'd be interested in working with you guys if you're into it. And we were kind of like, oh, so now it's a yes, like, great. So we ended up being able to work with them, and it was kind of fun because it was a supportive role at first and kind of maintaining stuff from Digital Hive. And then as new projects came out, Loretto was like, we have a new project. We have this new thing. What do you think? So we've been really fortunate to be able to work with them. But that was one where it was like a no at first, which then, if you just kind of stick with it and remain consistent, like people will come back. And if they don't come back, that's fine too.
Yeah. A lot of the times these decisions are made because you are at the top of their mind. So even if it isn't a yes right off the top, it might be a yes in the future.
We've also when you were talking about the pitching, we also I hate to say this is cold calling, but like back in the day, Colin and I used to make a list of like clients that we wanted to work with, like dream clients. And I was like, you know what, let's pick 3 every quarter and we'll just email them and just be like, not even trying to work with, like, don't send them a deck, don't send them like any idea for a meeting. You just pick a thing you like about them and tell them. Like, it's just straight up. So one of them was like an apparel brand, like a lifestyle apparel brand that I liked. It was privately owned. And I would like email them every once in a while and just be like, love what you guys are doing. Like, this is like my favorite piece that you guys have done. Not even asking for anything. Like, just like, oh, I love what you guys do. This is great. And then eventually, I think by the third or fourth email that I didn't get a reply to, I was just like, yeah, like if you guys are ever interested, like we've done certain things with this, love what you guys do. We know the brand. I think it was like after the third or fourth email, the owner was like, who are you? Like, why are you emailing me? Like, what is going on? Like, I guess we have to have a meeting now to talk about this because you've said a lot of really nice things. And we had a quick meeting about the brand, and there was nothing in line at the time. Like, they were working with a designer. Everything was already taken care of, but they were like, it was nice to meet you. Obviously, you are fans of the brand. Appreciate the support. We'll stay in touch. And then I think it was like 8 months later, they're like, hey, we're going to rebrand. Are you guys down? And we're like, yes. Like, and it was great fit because it's a brand that we loved. And then it was a brand that knew what we did. And it was a brand that kind of respected us. And they were willing to see what, we as like their audience were able to do for like their rebrand. It was great. And it was a good process. We love what we did for them. We kind of haven't really done any work with them in the last year or two, but we did work with them for about 4 or 5 years, and that was really great.
That's really good advice too.
Yeah, just pick people that you like. I mean, for people that are in the creative world or like anybody that's a freelancer, if there's a brand that you like, just reach out and just say, I love what you do. It's great. I mean, we get all the time from people that are like the best people that are trying to like get jobs with us, or the people that aren't even like sending us resumes. They're just like, I love what you guys did with Whiskey Coop. Like, nice work. And I'm like, thank you. And they're like, by the way, if there's any openings over there. So it's we've always liked that for a strategy. And again, be prepared to hear no a lot. But when you do hear yes, it's from somebody that you're really going to work well with because you like them. What they do is aligned with what you want, and you initiated the conversation to start it. So,
yeah. What do you think small business owners struggle with when it does come to website design or just graphic design in general?
Ooh.
Let's say a business owner is not completely lost when it comes to graphic design. Maybe they've been using Canva.
Yeah, which is great, by the way.
Which is great.
Yeah.
We love Canva over here. Sorry, I cannot even touch Adobe.
Yeah, no.
But
also, don't touch Adobe products. They're terrible. I'm going to say this on the record now as a professional designer and studio owner. Adobe, be better. It's what you guys are putting out is awful. Be better. Also, Canva, coming for you.
For sure. And I think in a way, the Adobe products have they're almost like gatekeeping in a way. It feels like a little gatekeepy, and it's, obviously you have people picking up Canva and doing some really incredible things with it now, especially with all the new AI features. So yeah.
That's a funny thing I want to talk to you about too, is like the future of design with AI, and how many people reach out to us and they're like, are you guys terrified of AI? I'm like,
what do you think about that?
No, I love it. I mean, it's just like anything else it's like any other tool that kind of comes in. Like, if you're a designer and you're terrified of AI and generative content, you're doing it wrong. There's no way that that's going to replace you as a designer if you're any bit good. But if you're a designer who loves to keep up on new tools and use things for inspiration, it's going to be a game changer for you. I mean, it is for us. We use it. I mean, for illustrative assets, it's kind of funny. We don't use AI for the raw assets, but we'll use generative content with coming up with an idea. For Whiskey Coop is one for hot sauce. We're give us an idea for a chicken whose mouth is on fire. And it'll spit you a bunch of different ideas, and you can kind of refine them here and there, but it's essentially iterating and sketching, just making a robot do it for you. So it can save us a lot of time. And I can see where, from a design standpoint and a business owner standpoint, that can be a tool in your toolkit, not necessarily something that is going to replace you. And if you're worried about it replacing you, really, if you can
then
be
it might be time to pivot too.
Yeah, if you can be replaced by an AI that's going to just spit out random cartoons in 30 seconds, I guess you're just a designer that can spit out random cartoons not as fast as a computer can. So maybe you should pivot and do something else and figure out how to use this for your practice. I've always been one of those people that when automation and new tools come about, I'm not afraid, but I'm immediately just okay, how can we use this? It's a tool. It's not a scary thing that's going to replace us at all. But I'm looking forward to it. It is making jumps like leaps and bounds. I'm terrified of it from the social media aspect because like how quickly people can be, they glance at an image on Facebook and they're like, oh my God, this happened. I'm like, that's not real.
That's
the only thing that's concerning with me.
That's, like the spreading of misinformation is terrifying for sure.
It's a little bit alarming. I guess we're all like looking at that part of it with caution, but as a tool for designers, it's incredible. Back to your question about what are small business owners in here doing wrong or could be doing better with design and web design. So Colin could really go in about the web design aspects of it right now. He's one of those guys that he feels like every website should be ADA compliant, should be really easy to use. He's really utility driven. So he would have a lot to say about, the way that people are abusing web framework out there. What I would say about design and websites, what people could do better is maybe do less. Like there's a lot of websites out there for small businesses that are just walls of text. I'm like, I don't need it all. Like I just need to know for like a restaurant, I need to know when you're open, what you're serving, and is there anybody I can contact for more information? It's pretty lightweight. For like business services, I really hate websites that don't have people on them. Like if it's like an agency and you click about us and it's like, we're a team of blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, a team of 1 or a team of 2 or a team of 75? Are you living here? Are you in Bangladesh? Like be a little bit more transparent, I guess, when you're like a service-based business, like about who's there, why I should trust you. And then from a design standpoint for like branding, I mean, it's really hard. Like at this point, we talked about design icks like on the phone. And I think I'm like, it's going to be a boring answer because I don't really have any. Like if you've been doing anything like for a decade as a professional, you kind of stop caring about what other people are doing in that industry and you're really focused on what you're doing. So when somebody comes out with a logo for a new brand, you're not really like critiquing the logo and like, oh, this is like garbage or this looks terrible unless it really looks bad. And you're not really like judging the designer on it because you have no idea what the story is. You have no idea if the client was like made them change things. You have no idea if the agency or designer delivered a perfect product and then afterwards the client kind of messed with things. So you kind of don't criticize that sort of stuff. I will just say like at this point, just be consistent with a brand. If you're a small business, like have something consistent, recognizable, transparent, maybe put a story to it. That would be pretty cool. Like it's always like nice when there's like a little hidden story. I guess we could be better about it from our studio perspective because like our story is that we're family, and like the lab creative doesn't really tell that. But other small businesses in the area, like I love when there's like a little bit of the storytelling on the wall. Like OG is pretty good with that. Like what Tommy did with them with all of the street style like graffiti that's on the walls and stuff and broken skateboards on the walls. It's really cool. I mean, it's like the vibe, it's the storytelling, it's what they want to do. It's pretty accurate for what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Canva is a great tool for people. And I think like things like that are really helping businesses kind of elevate things a little bit. It's a hard question, because like,
well, doing less, I think is truly the best piece of advice.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned because I'm really not a designer. I now have people that help me, which is great. But when I started this, I was doing everything and I look back at my designs because you can just go back in Canva. I'm like, oof, I was doing too much. I was literally giving everything in one graphic, one Instagram square sized graphic.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's kind of funny that people will just like use all that space, like no white space at all. Like I have to put everything in there. I have to fill it border to border. Actually, I will get into my one design ick. So this is kind of funny. I'm going to like probably ruffle feathers with this one. I don't think design is art. Like what we do is not art. Like as a graphic designer, we're not artists. We're professionals. We're solving a problem. And hate's a strong word. I don't like it when I see designers bend traditional rules of usability and design for the sake of just doing it and like being different. Like that's art to me. But if a client hires you to brand them and create something that resonates with an audience, and you intentionally make something that's just like your own vision, breaking rules, like no margins. Like the thing I really don't like is when people just, as designers, are doing text left to right with no margins on the side. It just fills the whole frame. And I've seen a couple of designers do like a little bit of a retro style with that. I'm like, ooh, it's not readable. It's not usable. Like, no, it doesn't look good. But you'll see designers doing it because like that was a trend that started, I guess, like a year ago.
I'm noticing that a lot, especially because there are so many brands popping up left and right, especially e-commerce brands. I feel like everyone has the same branding.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because that trend will like take off, and then somebody will take it and use it without knowing why. And like they're just like, oh, I saw like a cool brand that did this. And the cool brand might have had a reason, but they'll see a cool brand that did it and they'll just apply it to their brand. And then it just spreads at that point. And I'm like, well, now you have this unusable trend spreading, which breaks design. Like design is supposed to serve a purpose. It's supposed to be usable. It's supposed to be accessible for all and the entire audience. And art is your own personal thing. It's your own personal signature. Can designers be artists? Totally. But I think if a client hires you for design work and you're just doing abstract work just for the sake of being unique and different, I think you're kind of failing as a designer at that point, or failing as the task that you're being hired for.
Exactly, because it's not, I feel like in a way when designers do that or artists do that, they're making it about them.
Exactly.
And not about the client.
Exactly. Or the audience. Like, you know, it should be about the client. It should be about the audience. Like, that's why we've always, I mean, we'll say what work we've done, but I've always been really kind of hesitant when I've seen agencies put their name for the client name, almost as if it's a brand collaboration. And I think I've seen a lot of people, you know, like you'd see brand collaborations left and right, like FootJoy collaborating with Adidas or something like that. And it's FootJoy X Adidas. And then you see these agencies come out and they're like, Agency X, the toast of Casanova. And I'm like, no, you're not collaborating. You were hired.
Yes, exactly.
Like you should kind of be a little quiet behind the scenes. And if people go to your portfolio site, and again, this is personal preference, I'm probably going to get some hate mail after this, but on your portfolio site, show what you did for them. But like, I don't think you need to be the voice in the room for the client. Let the client have their moment on stage, let people see them and enjoy what you did for them, but you don't necessarily have to have your signature just stamped all over it.
Yeah, especially if you're being fully contracted to do a job.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're taking a piece of the brand's success with that campaign.
Yes.
And like trying to almost like capitalize off of that attention.
Yep. And at that point, you're like, who is this really for now? You know, was this for the client or was this for you?
Or obviously if it was like a sponsorship or an actual like collaboration, then that's a different story. But now that we see so many brands doing all these collaborations and just the influencer economy in general booming, and really it's really starting to shift, you know, how creative businesses are operating now. I almost feel like everyone is building a business, but because of the influence of social media impacting the business, they're also like simultaneously building a media company.
It is super fun to watch. I mean, because there are some people that are really great that I don't know, like you get so much more access to people in creative minds that you never would have gotten before. You know, like in the early 2000s when the internet was much smaller, you really had to know what you were looking for to be able to find something. Like you had to know what you were looking for. And now with social media, it'll kind of find you, whether you're looking for it or not, for better or worse. But with these brand collaborations and partnerships, it's really great because like there's things that you'll see you can just skip over and pass over if it doesn't resonate with you. But then there's other things that you would have never heard of that you might, you know, like a kid might have a small brand out in Los Angeles, which is a huge city. I don't know why I said LA. Kid might have a small brand in Modesto, California, and he's just using Instagram in such a cool way that it ends up coming across your feed and now you're connected with it. And whether you like it or not, that's up to you. But like, it's kind of cool access. You know, you have this huge audience in this huge marketplace with social media. It's doing a lot of really interesting, cool things. I have heard a lot of people in my generation kind of get a little bit upset about it because they just think they're like, oh, everybody's doing things on their own now. Good. Like, I want to see more people do things. I want to see more people take chances and fail. I want to see more people do things like creative ideas and stuff and brand with things. But the collaborations and the influencers that are coming out, there's a lot, but you can always just turn your phone off and be immune to it if you want to. A cool one I saw, it's not local, but there's like a golf company. This is wild. There's a golf company called Metalwood Studio. They're like a little brand out of LA, but they're tiny. There's like nobody there. And it's like a kid that's obsessed with like retro golf that started this thing. And he's got a huge following now. Like if you didn't know any better, you'd be like, oh, this is a huge brand. Like, but it's like one kid that runs it with like a friend who's a videographer. They put out good content. It's funny. It is consistently branded. So you might not even know. Like I didn't even know I was looking for that sort of thing. And then one day I saw it and I was just like, oh, this is cool. And now all of a sudden I'm following it. So it does give you access to like, I guess, just more creative minds, and it gives those people access to a bigger audience. So it can be helpful in that way.
From a design standpoint, what are some of your favorite brands that you've come across?
I
Maybe
love
some that we
everybody.
might know.
I love everybody. So obviously like the rise of athleisure stuff has just made like a lot of brands that I like more popular. Like obviously I really like ASICS a lot. And this is not a plug because we work with them. Like I love what ASICS is doing. I love what ASICS is doing in the running space. I love that the brand has a heritage in like running and like competition with Nike. I love like that whole story about them fighting for a marketplace. Smaller brands that I like, I mean, plug for Emerald Cocktail Kitchen. I just love everything she's doing. Like everything that Michelle Roche is doing from like a hospitality standpoint. I love like the whole Roco thing. We got Northbound Mind and Body over in Manoa, Jamie Weisberg. She started that. She's awesome. I love what she's doing. That was one where she told us what she wanted to do, and I thought she was a psycho for it. Like she's like, we're going to open up this space that's going to be like, you know, a lot of like body products, wellness products, reading corner, inclusive space where people can do yoga and like meditation in there and sound journeys. And I was like, awesome, awesome, awesome. She's like, yeah, we're going to do it in Manoa. I'm like, what? Like, there's like one bar in Manoa and like, I think like a cafe. And I was like, this is wild. Like, hope it works. She's doing really well. And I love that that's like something where she built the brand. We were able to work with her on it. We were very fortunate for that. Colin actually did the whole brand for that, like by himself as the web guy. So worked with them on the brand, and then just like, that's the visual identity. The brand is what Jamie's built, you know, and it's the space that she's built, and it's the way of living that she's built. And I love that that's been succeeding in Manoa.
Yeah, she collaborates with Tracy Dando from Safe Space too.
She's awesome.
They have a community called Root to Rise CNY. It's more of a wellness community. And they have their retreat coming up. I'm going to be attending it over
nice.
at Vanderkamp.
Very cool.
It'll be my first time at Vanderkamp too. I'm really excited to check that out.
I've seen photos.
Yeah,
I've seen like Jamie tagged in photos on it. I'm like, that looks so fun.
It's gorgeous, and what they want to bring to our region is really exciting.
Yeah.
They really want to expand the brand and really bring in some very well-known speakers and spiritual, you know, leaders, healers, stuff like that.
Awesome.
So, really cool stuff.
Yeah. Love what she's doing. Tracy's amazing, by the way. I met Tracy this year, and she's just like, man, like that personality fills the room, right? Like she's so cool.
She sure does.
It was kind of weird because like I was hanging out with Ben Schechter at like Salt City Market, and we were kind of talking about some stuff, and then all of a sudden like Tracy walked by, they got talking, and then she like walked up and introduced herself to me, and just huge presence. She's great.
She is the perfect person to be in a CEO role.
Yeah.
She really owns it, and she's done a great job with Safe Space.
She's one of the people too that like I could see her being like one of those rare personality types that can manage like multiple different organizations like all at once. She's really good, man. She's a hitter. Other brands that I love in the area. So we work with Myers Creek. I love Myers Creek as a brand. When they first started out, I was like not into them.
Okay. Did you guys also do their packaging, like design their packaging?
No, we've done a couple of different things for their packaging. We've done their web and some design assets for them, and we're working together on an ongoing basis now. And it's kind of funny because like we've done a couple of labeling. We did a marketing campaign I'll talk to you about in a second.
Wait, I think I know.
Sucks? Yeah, so that was a fun one. I love the brand now. It's kind of funny when they started. I'm one of those people that like a lot of times with things that I end up loving, I hate right in the beginning. Like something weird new will come up and I'll be like, what? Why? Like,
It
no.
just grows on you.
And then all of a sudden you're like, maybe. And like I do it with like shoes or like clothes. I'll be like, why would anybody wear that? And then I'm like, oh, it does look kind of comfortable. And then all of a sudden it's like I'm wearing it every day.
It's a good product.
Yeah.
You know, either the product or the people behind the product grow on you.
Right. But why you're so defiant against it to begin with, I don't know why.
But that's the power of branding.
I guess.
That's why branding is so important.
It really is. So Myers Creek started, and a lot of us kind of were Empire diehards. We just saw Empire disappear, and then we knew something new was going to start, and a lot of us were kind of just like in the announcement, they're like, yeah, there's somebody else taking over the brewery and like starting their own brand, and we're all like good luck. Like,
yeah,
almost like we're not going to go, but we all knew we were going to go check it out. And also they started during, like, I think they launched the brand in 2020. I think they started working on it before that, but they launched the brand in 2020, which again, good luck. Hardest thing ever to do. Saw the visual identity. I was like, oh, sick. It looks actually great. I can't be mad about it. It looks awesome. And it looks like a brewery. For years, I wanted like a really cool craft beer brand in Syracuse. We just didn't have one. We had Empire. It was great, but we didn't have anything that could really compete on a national level, especially not with like a visual identity. So we were like, when Myers Creek launched their visual identity, I was like, wow, it's kind of sick. I think they worked with a partner agency on that aspect of it. And then they launched the brewery and started doing beers to go during COVID and picked a couple up. And I remember being like, oh, they're good. Like whoever they've got brewing is like good. Like this is a good product. I'm psyched. So I think we kind of hit them up one time and we were like, hey, can we like link up with you guys just to see if like we can help you out with something? And they weren't in a capacity to be able to work with anybody at that point in time. And then when they wanted to redo their website, we were able to, pitch them for that and pitch them all sorts of ideas. And they ended up saying yes to all of them. But they're just like such a fun brand that we like the visual identity, we like the product, and we like what they're doing with the community. Like, what week is it? Myers Creek is doing some sort of giveaway, probably. Like it any given week, they're doing some sort of give back or some sort of collaboration.
Very good.
So yeah, Colby and Crystal and Jordan and Cody and the whole team over there, they're all the best to work with. Like, have you actually had the discussion with Crystal yet?
Yeah, she's going to be coming on here soon. Yeah.
Oh, she's the best.
She's just seemed really casual and just kind of chill, laid back. I like that though.
She was the one that I was thinking of in my head when I first met her. We first met her last year, and that was the one where I'm like, where have you been? Like, why am I I've been here in the city for like 14 years. Why am I just meeting you now? Like, she's got
so
some
cool. Excellent, really, really good experience too.
Yeah. And she can talk the talk. Like, she can walk the walk. Like, she's super, super good. So this is a little tea moment. We were talking with them about doing some ongoing projects. We launched the website. It's been super successful. It won awards. Shout out Colin for everything that he did with that website. It's incredible. And we were doing a little bit of design work for them for labeling. They've been working with another artist for a couple of years for labeling. He does a really great job. They had like a thing come up where somebody made a website in a spiteful way. They made a website that was myerscreeksucks.com. For whatever reason, they decided this was a good idea to do it and launched the website. And they're like, Myers Creek is trash. It sucks. Like, don't go there. Here are the other breweries that you should go to in the Syracuse area. And they basically listed everybody else, like Buried Acorn, Middle Ages. And I'm like, yeah, they are all great breweries. They're all awesome. We all like them. Everybody from Buried Acorn, awesome. Middle Ages, obviously a staple in the area forever. They're great. But like, why are we trashing Myers Creek just because it's new and it's successful? So Crystal calls us and she's like, got a funny one. Like, we found this website, and at the same time, Colin and I found the backlink to the website. We're like, yeah, we found it too. And she's like, what do you want to do about it? And we're like, I don't know. Like, it's so fun, right? Like, as a marketer, it's the greatest thing you could do.
Yeah, seriously.
Somebody just hands you like a
viral moment.
Sucks. And you're like, oh my God, what can I? And Crystal, like, I think Colby was kind of mad when it first happened because obviously he's the owner of the brand and you don't want somebody trashing your brand like that. So in his mind, he's like, somebody said we suck. Like, this is terrible. And Crystal's like giggling, like, this is the greatest thing anybody could ever do to us because we don't
she knows
suck.
marketing.
Yeah, and she's like, we don't suck. We're great. So this is an awesome
If
opportunity.
anything, it's going to get people in the door to try it.
So this is what's kind of why we started our studio in the first place, is just to be able to work on things like this. She hits us up and she's like, okay, what do we do with this? And we're like, well, we can make it a give back campaign. And she's like, yeah, we got to do like a parody of it. So the website was up for a short amount of time. I think the guy that launched it, he said it was only going to be up for like a week and a half. We went up there and immediately started like doing labeling for a beer. Myers Creek sucks. And we're getting all the artwork finalized for that. And they already had a beer that they were ready to go to brew that they just renamed it. And Crystal and I are talking. We're like, we got to make it a give back. Like we got to find somebody where we can just like take the sales and just give them to that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to contact David's Refuge, which we've had a partnership with for years. Love the whole team over there. They're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I could spend a whole podcast episode talking about how great they are.
Kate
is the best. Rory's the best. Everybody over there is the best. It's so good.
Sorry, random. I ran into her at Salt City Market. Briefly met her in passing at a networking event a couple months ago, but she was like, hey, do you have a second? Can you sit down really quick? And I was like, I almost felt like I was in trouble, right? Because I mean, she's just, she is a pillar in our community. And she just gave me the most nicest pep talk I've ever received from basically a stranger.
Yep.
She's like, hey, just so you know, I see you, I see what you're doing. And you need to give yourself more credit. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's one of those things you didn't know you needed to hear, but like she like drops it right on you at the right time. Yeah, she's incredible. We ended up getting a hold of her and we were just like, hey, we have this idea. It does use the word sucks. So like if you don't want it aligned with David's Refuge, that's fine. But basically we're going to do this as a give back, sell this beer. And the whole thing was like a ha-ha moment. Like, yeah, we're so bad that we're just making a bad beer. And then all the sales from it are going to go to a nonprofit because we're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Launched the whole thing. I think Crystal reached out to us on a Monday about that thing. We had the labeling design done, printed by Friday. And we were ready to go. We announced it. I think we also kind of bait and switched the guy who did the website because he started kind of hearing that we were doing something. So we were like, yeah, we're going to launch it on next Friday. So he knew he had till next Friday to have it up. And then he was going to take it down before we launched. And I think Crystal launched it on Wednesday before, like a couple days early. So he kind of got caught with that website up. And people knew who it was. And they were like, why would you do this? Like, why are you trashing a local business? And B, why them? Like, why would you do this with this company that like gives so much money away and they do such good things in the community? They're growing, they're investing.
Mm-hmm.
The website came down and he was real quiet about it. It was like a really goofy moment for all of us. But even in the end, like if somebody was mad about that, like, sorry, like David's Refuge got money from this out of this whole joke and it's great. Like,
I don't
how
know
can
who
you be
would
mad
be mad about that?
Exactly.
But did this person have anything to do with the brand? Was there any bad blood? Or
No, I mean, I think.
I mean, I'm sure there wasn't bad blood on Myers Creek's part, of course, because they are professionals and they have always conducted themselves.
Yeah, I think the only thing was like that. Again, the founder was like a little bit. He's very personally attached to the brand, like obviously. So Colby was like a little bit, I think, insulted when somebody said that their brand sucked. Like he's like, why? Like we're trying to make good beer here, trying to do a good thing. Like why do we suck? And I think it's natural for any business owner to feel that way when somebody comes out and says their business sucks. But he was on board with it like as soon as Crystal presented it, but it was kind of funny because like the guy that did it, I just don't think he knew what he was doing. Like I think he was doing something with like a local brewery and he thought doing this would be helpful to them. But it was the opposite. Like somebody immediately thought it was a local brewery that was like being spiteful. So like the local breweries are like, we didn't have anything to do with this. So the person that was responsible for it, it was a misstep. And I think they know. But it did give us a cool opportunity to be able to just be like, yeah, okay, we're so bad. Like, since we're so bad, we're just going to give a bunch of money away to like David's Refuge, whatever.
You guys should also do like some PR work, some crisis management work.
We do it quietly. Like we definitely do some of that stuff quietly. We've had some stuff. It's not a service that we want to sell because I feel like it's the creative work is more the stuff that we want to focus on. But like, it's something that we do quietly. When we are partnered with a client, we do provide services that are not necessarily like on our website as public services. Which is also kind of funny because we had a client call us up the other day and they're like, hey, like, do you guys do like SEO services? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I just wasn't sure. I'm like, it's on our site and we've worked with you for like 6 years. Like, we do this. But yeah, it's stuff that we've done before. And it's exciting. It's fun problem solving. Like, it's funny to watch Colin come alive when that sort of stuff happens because he's a real outside the box thinker. As much as I think he thinks he's like pretty straight laced in how he approaches things. But when a problem or a situation like this arises, he's kind of funny because he comes up with some like hairball ideas, like off the wall ideas that are all really good. And, it's fun to work on those sorts of things. I want to do it with the people that we want to work with. I want to do those sorts of services for the clients that we want to work with. I don't necessarily want to put it on our website that we do crisis management and have like some terrible company be like, we're just getting killed out here. Can you help us out? Be like, no, because you're getting roasted because you do terrible stuff. You deserve to get roasted for it. But the people that we work with that, we trust and they trust us, it's really, I don't want to say it's fun to have those opportunities come up, but when those opportunities come up, it's we all get engaged in the same level to come up with a solution for it. And usually we come up with something that's pretty damn good. So
yeah. Well, what's next for the Lab Creative?
Oh boy.
Any fun announcements?
So there are things in the works with the studio, but I am a big proponent of you don't announce it until it's ready to go. So all of the, like we were talking about with construction and stuff, the restaurants that are like, we're opening this new concept. And then you sit and stare at it for like 2 years before it opens. I'm like, how about we do a new thing, Syracuse, New York, and you work on it quietly and you finish the concept. And when you're ready to open the doors, you announce it. Like, you announce it like 2 days before. The excitement's there. Everybody's excited and intrigued. They go to it. So I don't want to announce some of the stuff that we're doing with the studio, but I will say that there's new things that we're excited to launch. Touche, new restaurant that's opening up in it'll be open by the time this goes out. And that is Bob Leonard from Nobody's and Jeff, who I forget where Jeff was before this, but incredibly talented chef, like beautiful guy. He's doing such a good job there. But that place is going to be incredible.
We do need a French bistro too.
It's going to be so good. It's so funny too with Jeff. Like what he does is, amazing, impressive dishes, but he'll talk it down at the end of the day. He'll be like, it's just food. Like, it's wild. He's like, I'm still just putting beef on a plate.
Typical
like,
business owner.
I know. Like, just like talk about humble. We're doing some new things for a dermatology client called Visual DX. We're doing some exciting projects for them. I don't know that the public would be really excited about dermatology products, but we've got a lot of really cool, interesting things that we're working on with them that are going to be launching next year. Time off, that'll be exciting. Colin and I don't really ever take time off. I think he's taken one vacation in 9 years where he went to Scotland.
Any travels?
For me, I'm always saying that I'm going to, but then there's always something that gets in the way. I'm going to take a little time off to go see some family in North Carolina. Basically go visit my brother down there, go visit my sister up north a little bit, probably over the holidays. That's basically it. Get some time trail running in and then get prepared for the rest of the year next year.
Oh boy, I can't believe it. 2025 is upon us.
2024 was like a fever dream, right? Like it didn't happen.
Absolutely. I have just worked nonstop all year long.
It's funny because I have the feeling you're the same way with me with time management where we're like, we'll get to that. And then it's just like, it's here.
Yeah.
Like we'll get to this before 2025 and now it's here. So yeah, another year is going to go by. Just make the best use of the time you have while you have it, I guess.
Absolutely. We love that. Ending on a positive note.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to the open of Touche. Definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing everything you guys do in 2025.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing this grow. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Season 2.
Season 2, baby. And it's only up from here, right?
It's so funny too, because like the production value for what you guys are doing, like season 1, amazing start. And then you announce season 2 and I'm like, oh, this is what's season 3 going to be?
Well, season 1, I was like, I wasn't obsessed with having everything perfect. I was just like, as long as I'm consistent and we get some good people on here.
Yeah.
We just stay consistent is the biggest thing. I was happy with that, but I'm so excited to have these guys with us. Shout out Dime Media.
Great group.
Really bringing things up a notch for sure. And
Absolute
the
killers.
content looks great. So I hope everyone's been enjoying season 2. And
Of course.
thank you so much for joining me. All right, guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you left us a review and make sure you're subscribed to the show. Speaking of the show, if you know anyone or if you are interested in being our next guest on Cultivate CNY, be sure to submit us an application. You can just click the link in the show notes. And if you're a business owner that's interested in getting in front of our audience, you can go ahead and email us at podcast@cnywomensnetwork.com to learn more about sponsorship and advertising opportunities. All right, that's it for now. I'll catch you guys next Monday.
We'll be right back.